In demonstration 10 we'll sketch and extrude a shape with tapered faces, and we'll also use the extrude cut command for the first time. To do this we'll create a rectangle, apply dimensions and the coincident constraint before extruding that shape using a taper. On a new sketch we'll then create a circle. We'll use vertical and horizontal constraints to locate it, and then we'll extrude cut again with the taper. As always, we start our new part by selecting the standard millimeter IPT template file. We need to create our first sketch, but before we proceed, have a look at the exercise. And firstly, we need to identify that we're given the base dimension for this tapered rectangular prism, or if you like, a truncated rectangular pyramid. The base dimensions are 80mm by 50mm, and then we're given a height in the right side view of 50mm. But note, we're not given any dimensions for the topmost surface. All we're given is an angular dimension which gives us a taper angle, and that's what we're going to need to use in order to create this form. So selecting our very first plane, we need to firstly create the base, and I'll do that using the rectangle command, and once again I'll shortcut creating the various dimensions and constraints by snapping to the origin point for the first point of my rectangle and then typing in the 80mm width, tab, and then the 50mm height of my first rectangle, and you'll see that that is then created already fully constrained. Now if I finish this sketch, I can apply the extrude command and I can specify 50mm in height, but you can see here of course that this creates a parallel sided object or a regular rectangular prism without any taper to it. In order to create a taper to an extrusion, we need to go to the More tab here in the Extrude dialog box, where we can apply a taper angle. The thing to remember with the taper is whether the angle that you apply is positive or negative. If we apply just a 10-degree taper, bearing in mind that the angle given here is 80 degrees, 90 minus 80 being 10, but if we apply a 10-degree taper, you see here that as we move away from the face of the original sketch, the material is being added. That's a general rule with any taper type thing in Inventor. If the number's positive, material is being added. If we make the number negative, so minus 10 degrees, then material is being removed as we move away from our original sketch plane. So we're happy with that, so click OK, and this is now our first form or our first extrusion. The next step is to create a circle on this top face, which we're given the dimensions for, and then extrude that using a 20-degree taper down through the object and then cut material away. So that's still the extrude command, but it's the cut option that's used in the extrude command. So to do this, we'll start another 2D sketch on our top plane. And I'll draw a circle, and I'll draw it somewhere near the center, and I'll specify a diameter of 25 and then hit enter. So the size of the circle is specified, but we need to locate it in the middle of this face. Now because we knew the base size of this object and we knew the taper angle, we've got now idea how big that face is, and in situations like this where you want to locate something in the center of an object, it's far and away easier to use the horizontal and vertical constraints. So let's apply a vertical constraint first from the center point of the circle, and then move along that edge until we get the small yellow circle that lights up on the midpoint of that line, and left click. It projects the line or the edge and the center point through onto our new sketch and aligns the circle accordingly. Now we can't move it left or right, but it's still free to move up and down. So to fix that, we'll then apply a horizontal constraint between, again, the center point of the circle and the midpoint of the edge on the left. You can see now that our circle is fully constrained. So now that we've done that, we can finish that sketch, and again we're going to apply an extrude. we'll need to pick our center point there. And now instead of adding material or joining material on, we're going to cut material away. So select the cut extrude option, and you'll see that that goes through through the object then, and the ghost is in red, so it shows that material is being removed. We now need to change our taper. So once again, and bearing in mind, because the taper is getting larger as it moves away from, or the cross section is getting larger as the extrusion moves away from the original sketch plane, our taper will need to be a positive, and it's 20 degrees. And I get that 20 degrees from the 70 degree dimension on the right side view of the exercise. 90 degrees minus 70 gives us a 20 degree taper. So click OK, and you'll see now that we've finished the exercise, and it gives us what is essentially, or what looks very much like a very complicated shape, but of course it's simply two very simple extrusions.